Hi, I'm Larry Nimmer, and it's my privilege to introduce one of the Carpinterian Educator of the Years, Carolyn Haines. How are you doing?
Great, thank you very much.
Carolyn, tell me, what school do you work at and what do you teach?
I teach third grade at Carolyn Elementary.
And what's your background?
So I grew up in Orange County. My husband grew up here in Carpinteria. We moved here in about 2015. Before moving here, I ran and taught at a post-secondary school. I trained dialysis nurses and technicians. So I was always a teacher of adults before moving here. When we moved here, I started volunteering in my kids' schools, and I really fell in love with the elementary setting and working with younger students. I started substituting in the school district, and I got my multiple subject teaching credential, and I've been at Catalino now as a full-time teacher. This is my third year.
How old are your kids now?
My kids are 13 and 15, so they're at the middle school and high school here in town.
Oh, that's nice that you have your own kids here in the school district.
Yeah, it's been great. It's really nice to teach in the community that we live in.
And you live here in Carpinteria
yes,
too?
Yes.
Nice, nice. Tell me, what in general makes for a good teacher, and what do you think are some of your strong points?
I think a teacher has to really love kids. The teachers that I think are most successful and really enjoy what they do genuinely love spending time with students and getting to see kids grow. I also think that teachers who are curious about the world and are lifelong learners themselves tend to make the most successful teachers, because there's always something to learn. In my classroom, everyone is a learner, myself included. Everyone is a leader. We all have different roles to play within a classroom, but there are plenty of things that I have to learn, plenty of things that I'm curious about and I get to learn with my students, and I think that makes the classroom a much more welcoming space and invites a lifelong love of learning in students, and I think that that's important.
Well, what type of things are you learning?
We've been studying ocean pollution. It got sparked off this year. Our principal, Mrs. Pursoon, shared with all of the teachers a video created by Ocean Futures up in Goleta. Holly Loheis shared it, and it was on trash in the ocean. And it's a huge problem. And my students were really, we viewed the video together, and we were really sparked our curiosity of how big is this problem and what can we do about this? So we did a whole unit about studying what is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and what is the problem with trash in our ocean. And it allowed me to learn as our students learn. So I knew more than they did going in, but I learned a lot of things as well. And I think that makes it more interesting for me, because I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. But it also makes it so that we're able to discover things together and find information. Information literacy is a huge skill that students will need going forward. There's so much information available to students now through the internet and through a wide range of sources, but filtering through what is credible sources and what is most important is a skill, just like learning to read is a skill, and finding equivalent fractions is a skill.
Now, I believe your principal nominated you as Educator of the Year?
Yes, I think so.
Who's your principal?
My principal is Jamie Pursoon.
Oh, I hear she's quite good.
She's amazing. She's such a great leader. She's really inspires me to do my best. She's a coach and a mentor for me, and she really creates a positive culture on campus. We have a very diverse student population, and all students are welcome, all students are valued, and I really appreciate that.
Now, what age are the kids in your classroom?
My students are third graders, so they're 8 or 9. They're turning 9 this year.
Does it get exhausting working with kids that age, and how do you deal with that?
I really like 8 and 9-year-olds. I think they're really fun. Before this, I taught second grade, so 7 and 8-year-olds, and they're so curious. They're so wise about the world. They have opinions, and but they're not. They don't sort of have the the hormones yet that older students have. So they're not as self-conscious about their social standing. They're more willing to take a risk. And I think that that's kind of a sweet spot. I'm really happy to be with this age, but I love students of all ages.
What are some of the projects you do and subject matters?
So as an elementary teacher, I teach all subjects. Reading, writing, math, science, PE. We teach everything. For me, the things that I like teaching the most are integrated subjects. So I like to read and write about what we're learning in science. I like to use our math skills to help us with science. We do a lot of social studies through our language arts curriculum, which is fantastic. And the kids absolutely, they just want to know about the world. So they're really invested in science and social studies. And I think that that ties into all of our other core subjects. I had mentioned our ocean pollution project. We did a lot of study. We wrote essays about ocean pollution. We've written letters, persuasive letters about ocean pollution, and we've done art projects related to it. So it really allows us to pull all of our subjects together when we really are interested, and it's something that we find fascinating, and it makes it really easy to really integrate all of the subjects together, which gives a more holistic approach. You don't read separately than writing. They really do go hand in hand. And if you're working in science, you write about your science, what you're discovering and what you think about it and your hypothesis. And so really having very interesting topics for us to study makes it so that we're able to bring them all together.
And topics that are relevant to them living here by the beach.
Right. The conversation that we frequently have is that there are lots of problems in the world that they will have to face as they get older and become adults. But most problems have a solution, but it's going to affect them more than it will affect older people. And so them coming up with creative and innovative ideas is how problems get solved. We don't know how to solve the problem right now of ocean pollution. We have lots of ideas, but someone is going to figure it out, and it's probably going to be someone in their generation.
Are they also studying global warming at all, and are they
We do. We talk about climate
about
change. We talk about climate change really frequently. One of the things that my class does is we look at current events every Friday. We look at things that are happening in the world that are more kid appropriate. So in this past week, it was the Super Bowl, and the Olympics is going on right now, and things like that. But one of the stories that came up was that koalas are now considered endangered because of all the droughts and wildfires in Australia. And that's an opportunity for us to talk about, like, why are there droughts and why are there wildfires and why does it seem like we're having more extreme weather, and is this different or is this the same as it's been, and what is causing this, and as people, what is our responsibility to the animals and to our planet and to one another to tackle this problem. And it's hard because it feels very overwhelming, but oftentimes kids feel better when they have a plan. They have a step to say, okay, this is something I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in a reusable water bottle rather than, bringing in a plastic water bottle every day. And it's something concrete that they can do, but it's also raising their awareness and having them become more aware members of our community and our society.
I think I can hear you well. We're here outside the Friends of the Library bookstore, and some noise off and on, but it's nice being outside here. Are there Spanish-speaking kids in your classroom?
Yes, I have a group of bilingual students. We call our students who speak both Spanish and English immersion bilingual students, and I have a group of immersion bilingual students, as well as all of our elementary teachers teach a protected 30-minute block of time called designated English language development for students who have not yet mastered English. So they get a protected portion of the day where they are specifically learning language skills. It happens to be one of my favorite parts of the day. I get to work with students who are bilingual, the group that I work.
And I take it you're bilingual?
I am not bilingual. I wish I were. I'm trying very hard to be bilingual. It is tough to learn a second language as an adult. I took Spanish all throughout middle school and high school, and I have a lot of understanding of Spanish. I read and write in Spanish better than I speak, which is a pretty common phenomena for language learners. So I have a lot of empathy for my students who are learning in two languages and who are have a language that doesn't feel at home in their mouth, and are working on that. So yes.
Nice. Well, what percentage of the students are Hispanic? Do you know?
At Catalino, I think I think we have 60% Hispanic students at Catalino. Not all of those students are considered English learners or emergent bilinguals. Some of them have already mastered both languages and are considered already bilingual students. But a very sizable population at our school speaks Spanish at home.
How did the pandemic affect you and your students? I suppose it did.
Pandemic has been transformative in I think all of our lives, but education, we really have gone through a wide range of changes that some of them will be lasting and some of them were temporary. For me, suddenly shutting down was very, I'm a problem solver, so I don't tend to dwell on something. I tend to go into solution mode. And when we first closed down, I started making videos every day. I read a picture book every day with my class, and I have since I started, but I started making YouTube videos, reading picture books to my students so that they had that consistency and they had that connection of reading a story with me every day. Started that even before we came back online. I happen to love technology. I'm a technophile, and the transition to Zoom and digital learning was really easy for me, but it wasn't for everybody, and it wasn't for a lot of students, and it wasn't for a lot of my colleagues. So I was able to do a lot of things because I felt confident learning the new technology and producing videos and other digital assignments. But I started coaching a lot of my colleagues through it as well, because it was really difficult. It was a really difficult time. I still feel when we do Zoom meetings like we don't want to go back to that. Being in the same room with your students is a very different experience than being on the computer and being distant. A lot of families really did not have access to the internet and didn't have the technology skills to be very successful at home. I know a lot of my students were at home with older siblings or had a parent who had to take off work to help them be at home, and that was really, really difficult. Being back in person is dramatically better.
Are you back full-time now? It's February 2022.
I think we've been back full-time since April of 2021. All students have been in the classroom since April of 2021. And so it's been almost a year now that we've been back fully in person, which is great. I think that's it's much more effective for majority of our students.
Do you have any suggestions for changes going into the future with teaching or the school district?
The one thing I wish that we had more funding from the state and federal level for schools. I think something we've learned from the pandemic is how very vital the public school system is to our community, and how important it is not only for students but for families to have transportation and nutrition and that connection with their families. And it's hard to do when you're having to choose how to allocate resources. We have a lot of requirements and mandates, and we do that very well. Teachers and school systems are very, very flexible, very, very innovative with how we solve problems, but a little more money would make a really big difference in the lives of our students.
Is there much involvement by parents in the classroom or with the kids?
With the pandemic, we haven't had parents on campus yet. So we just found out that parents will be back on campus, or allowed back on campus, March 1st in the Carpinteria schools. Actually, will be outside. They'll be allowed on campus, but outside, will not be in the classrooms quite yet. But my experience in Carpinteria is there's a lot of family involvement, both with helping out in the classroom, volunteering in the classroom, and on field trips and all sorts of programs. I know that there are some classrooms at Catalina where parents volunteer to help teach PE, and they walk over to El Caro Park, which is fantastic. Myself as a parent, I love to get to see what my students are, what my children, my own children, are doing in their classrooms, and I look forward to having parents be able to participate on campus as well.
Do you have any suggestions for parents how they can help their kids become good students? And do they get homework that they help them with, or what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think students at every grade level have homework. I think in the primary grades it's more optional, and as they get older it becomes more important. I think the one thing that I think that students would benefit most from is reading at home and reading with your family. So either shared reading of a book or having a family time where everybody reads would make a really big difference in a lot of kids' lives. Reading is one of the core skills that accesses all the other subjects and is a determinant of success. And reading is more fun when you get to talk to someone else about what you're reading and you see someone else doing it. If it's just go to your room and read your book for 30 minutes, it's not very exciting, it's not very fun, especially if it's something that their child is struggling with, if they have a hard time with reading. Having shared reading experiences where you are being read to or reading to your child really will make a big difference.
And lastly, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I'm really surprised to be chosen as one of our Educators of the Year. I'm really proud of what our Carpinteria schools do. I think that kids have been amazing and resilient throughout the pandemic, and I'm very optimistic that we'll be stronger communities and stronger schools because of this sort of shared life-changing experience.
Well, Carolyn Haines, congratulations. Sounds like you're a great teacher, and what I read about what your principal wrote, that you're a great teacher. Keep up the good work, and thanks so much for your dedication to the students of Carpinteria.
Thank you so much.
This year's Community Awards Gala will be March 12th at Rincon Beach Club, and this program is now under the auspices of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce from Goleta to Santa Barbara. It'll be March 12th, as I said. You can get your tickets online. For the Chamber of Commerce and for the City of Carpinteria, I'm Larry Nimmer.